Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Steve Carpenter. I am the Michael J. and Amy Rusinko-Keikos Dean in the College of Arts and Architecture. And it is my pleasure to have a sit-down conversation with Gail Anderson. Before we get started, I want to thank members of our College of Arts and Architecture IT team. I want to thank the College of the Liberal Arts, who are a co-sponsor of this event. And I want to thank all of the students, faculty, staff members who were so excited to know that Gail Anderson was not only going to sit down with me this morning, but also be our commencement speaker tomorrow at undergraduate commencement. Yes. So without further delay, I want to introduce Gail. I don't like to do formal kinds of introductions. And then I have a whole set of questions. Okay. And we'll see which ones and how many we get through. It's not a race and it's not a competition. We have people in the studio, in the jury space, and we have people online. We'll take some questions. So it's very much like inside the actor's studio. We'll have a chat and then we'll open it up to the rest. How's that work?
Sounds good.
Good. So here's the deal. Gail Anderson is chair of BFA Design and BFA Advertising at the School of the Arts in New York City.
School of Visual Arts.
School of Visual Arts. I said correct. Thank you. School of Visual Arts. You're also known for an amazing portfolio and career of work in design, graphic design. Couple of ways that people have been interested in your work, at least as far as I'm concerned. They've been saying, really? You have the person who designed the Emancipation Proclamation stamp? I said, yeah, that's good. They said, wait a minute, you have the person who used to be the art director at Rolling Stone? I said, yeah, that's good. I mean, these are not low profile gigs that you've had before. Gail Anderson, welcome. All right. So prepared questions. I'm just going to start off. Why design? Why graphic design? Why in the world would you think this made any kind of sense to do as a livelihood?
As a kid, I had a Jackson 5 scrapbook, like you do.
Like you do. I'm not saying that 50% of the people on this stage may have had one of those. The percentage could have been higher.
And I watched The Partridge Family and all those shows. And when I was making the scrapbook from my Spec and 16 magazines, I was like, how do you get to do this for a living? And even looking at the magazines that my sister and I got, Spec and 16, that's like, these are so cool and loud and colorful and all of the type and these cutout heads and illustrations. And it's like, what's the job? And when I was in high school, there was a book in the art room that was Careers in the Visual Arts. And it said that what this was commercial art. I was like, so I'm going to be a commercial artist. Mm-hmm. And I want to work at Spec or 16, which were at 745 Fifth Avenue. And I wanted to design album covers like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, because I thought that was a great cover. And I would copy that and put that on the wall. And there was a poster on the wall in the art room, Paul Davis, To Be Good Is Not Enough When You Dream of Being Great, poster for the School of Visual Arts. And I was like, I want to go there. So I from that poster, I decided that's where we go to college. And like you do. And luckily, first generation American, our parents just you're going to college. So it wasn't, well, what college is that a college? And he's like, yeah, it's college. Okay, go ahead and go. So, and from there, commercial art became graphic design, and I was like, this is for me. This is what I want to do, and I want to make magazines like my Spec and 16 magazines, and my whole world exploded. And when the Rolling Stone job came along, after the Boston Globe. That was in 85. And when I went to the interview, Rolling Stone was at 745 Fifth Avenue. And I was like, I've come full circle. We're no longer Spec or 16 anymore, but I was in that building and I wanted to do entertainment and design and magazines. It was like check. And so I've been lucky, and through my high school art teacher, through the years at SVA, my chair, Richard Wild, who I now am in the position that he served as founding chair for 50 years. Doing the math, it's like, I got maybe 10 years in me at the most, but not 50, I'll be dead. But, you know, I've been really lucky. I've also worked really hard and made both good and bad sacrifices, probably. But I meandered into what I love from making a scrapbook of Michael Jackson. Yeah. That I found years later.
You found the scrapbook.
Scrapbook, yep. And which was held together with Elmer's glue, and it was still together. But the glue from 1972 was still sticking. And I photographed some pages, and it's at the National Museum of African American. That whole acronym of that great museum. So yeah, they've got the scrapbook. So it's like,
you mean down in DC?
Yeah.
DC on the mall.
Yes.
In that brand new building that kind of does this, the National Museum of African American Art and Culture.
Yeah.
The scrapbook that you made in 1972, Jackson 5.
You can have it. Safekeeping.
Well, now you know where it is.
I know where it is. So, and a bunch of other stuff, but that in particular was hard to give up. So I should be in like an Elmer's glue commercial. All these years.
You know what's going in my head? I have this little tune going.
Yeah,
in the back of my head. Yeah. Outstanding. I remember watching the cartoon on Saturday mornings.
Yep.
Did you cut images from the
my
magazines and
magazines?
paste? Did you draw any of this?
A little bit too, in lots of secret messages. MJ loves GA, and I remember I entered a contest to design a costume for him. And you had to send your like school picture and why it was you. And I was so convinced. I was like, well, and when I meet Michael,
Right.
I was going to win, and nothing happened. But I was, yeah.
I love it. That was a magical time, right?
Yeah.
Those cartoons and
Yes.
Jackson 5 were on all the covers of different.
Yeah.
different
And
covers.
it was Michael versus Donnie. So Donnie
Of course,
Osmond.
yeah.
Michael, so it was, a little bit of that. So when I was working at Spotco, after Rolling Stone, I worked for one of my classmates from SVA. For years, I was the creative director of design at an agency that did all the Broadway theater stuff. And Drew, my classmate in Boston, and I were coming out of the office, going down 7th Avenue, and coming up was Donnie Osmond, because he was in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And the two of us, because of the, our age and all that, we were like, Donnie! And then we instinctively turned around and followed him. And then we found ourselves at the corner, we're like, what are we doing? We're adults. And you just kind of looked. And when I was at Rolling Stone, David Cassidy came to the office.
Did he really?
And he was this big. And all of us of a certain age were like, he came out and looked at him, and I think he was so happy that we were like,
I'm probably happy that you didn't say, didn't you used to be David?
I know,
Cassidy, right?
that's what it was. And we were like all bigger than him. And I was like, that's David Cassidy. So
For those of you who don't know,
yeah, and that's probably
the word heartthrob
Yeah.
and David Cassidy are essentially the same, right? Pretty close. Yeah.
pretty close. Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw away all the questions. Now, we talked about Jackson 5,
Yeah.
Partridge Family, the Osmonds,
Mhm.
David Cassidy.
We didn't hit the Brady Bunch, but
No.
we can get there.
We can get to the Brady Bunch. Well, I mean, we've been on Zoom mostly for the past several years. Feels like the Brady Bunch looking up and down.
Yes.
and-
Yes.
Pop culture makes sense to you as
Absolutely.
a place to think,
Yep.
as a place to ideate.
Yep.
What is pop culture doing now that is different than what was happening when we were pop culture in that moment that you were just referencing?
It's so different now. It's so towards the end of my time at Rolling Stone, it was, we were on our second and third covers for people. So that's when I kind of knew it was like, okay, enough Britney for me at that point. And it's like, I'm too old for this now. And I can't even imagine now Taylor Swift and like everything is dialed up so much more than even my years of Madonna and whoever else we were covering rapidly. And there are so many people involved outside of the artist, and I'm my years of all that were pre-social media, whether it was the theater stuff or magazines. I can't even imagine.
Well, the social media stuff is the piece that really gets me, right? Because if I were to open this thing now and type anyone's name, I would have more images instantly than I could have waiting for the next issue of Rolling Stone to come out.
Yep.
Right? And so it was that anticipation of what is the next image, or hanging it on to that magazine, right? That was if you want an instant image of whoever, you go to page 75 and there they are, right?
Yeah, and for us, it was an office filled with people who revered Dylan and Bruce Springsteen. And a new album would come out, put it on the turntable. People would just sit there and listen. And that's I don't know what the experience is now, because this whatever it is dropping in the middle of the night and the whole world. And I lived for advanced copies of things that we got, and so much of what I knew a lot of pop culture anyway, but I learned so much at Rolling Stone, and then again at Spot. And so everything that I've done has been about learning something new and a new challenge that excites and scares me at the same time. And for everything that I've done, the first couple of years have been like gut wrenching, and including this new job that happened right before the pandemic.
Hey, so same here.
There you go. So it's like, I think I can do this, and then it's like, phew. So that's been good for me, because I know I start to get a little lazy, and it gets easier, and then I'm distracted by other shiny objects, and it's time to do something else. And then the starting of something else is awful, and that's why people stay and do exactly what they've been doing, because that's easier. And then like, what was I thinking? I was a magazine person, and now it's all these theater people, and they're like, who are you? Where did you come from? And like, nowhere. And I have no equity, because they're like, what? But in the end, it's always been good to make the changes. And the changes have been like every decade, not like every year or something. So I have to go right to the end, burn out, or get shitty at what I'm doing, and then move on, and then do the same thing again. I think I'm not going to do that. I'm going to like leave at a high point, and then like, no, I'll just like ride this right to the bitter end. And then, so
doesn't always work like that.
Yeah. But the change has ultimately been good. Each
ultimately
time.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's about talk to me a little bit more about the learning something new. I really I physically responded.
And as you get older, you learn something new. So, and even now, like when I started teaching, and that's 31 years ago, I was a couple years older than the students, and so we had common references, and then all of a sudden that started to change, and I realized that being in the classroom was something I really needed to keep me fresh, and as I got older, to keep me up to speed on what kids like and what they're interested in and all that stuff. But each of those changes have been kind of brutal. And the most recent of now being much older, and so much older than the students, that's like, you taught my mother. Like, you really don't need to tell me So, yeah, so now I'm just trying to wrap my head around. But know that again, I don't wanna overstay my welcome.
Sure.
So, and there'll be a point, because I've taken this on older than younger, that it's like I don't want to be in this too long. That it's like, we have to make accommodations for Gail, because trying to, how does she use your phone? What? So
But you'll know is what I'm sensing.
I hope so.
You'll know.
I kind of knew the other times too, but like again, like, ugh.
Do you have good friends who you've sworn to the agreement that if Gail starts to go out of her lane, then hey, Gail, it's time.
I have said that to my colleagues at work. You need my assistant. You need to tell me. I can take it. Just tell me when the time comes, and I'll pack my boxes and get out of here.
Does that give
They're
you
like,
some freedom?
oh, really? No, no, I really mean it. So,
But does that give you some freedom? In other words, like you don't have to monitor that part of you. You can just kind of go.
Because they're going to be too nice and not tell me. So they're just going to talk about me behind my back. But I'm trying.
Give me some more detail about this new gig. You're chair of.
I'm chair of one large department and one small department, but put together, it's probably about 800 students. And here, that's like a drop in the bucket. But for a design department, for an advertising department, that's a lot of kids. And that the teaching part wasn't new to me, since I've done it for so many years. But the administrative part of it, how do you people do it? So that's been a challenge. The things that I didn't have to navigate before.
Right. But you had to manage, be an administrator to folks designing in different aspects of the
but this
magazine,
is
right?
different.
How is it different? There's still a bunch of folks who are doing their thing, and you're trying to make it go this way. They want to go this way. Other people come and say, "No, let's go this way." Like things are always dynamic.
This is their lives and their futures and their careers and all their problems and all the tears and all of that. It feels like a much bigger responsibility than whether a show succeeds or not, or whatever this story looks like in a magazine or a book or a project. Like those are all great and things that I have to do separately to maintain my sanity and to have something really creative going on. But the other part has really been an education that I thought, well, I've got this. I've been working forever, and just the even though it's a different kind of academia than a big university like this, it still was different for me. Mm-hmm. And my sister's a professor, recently sort of semi-retired from Holy Family University, somewhere in Pennsylvania. And in talking to her, she was like, oh yeah, this is what this is like. How did you do this for so many years? Yeah. So,
do you teach? Did I understand that?
Yeah, I still teach. Yeah, I again taught from early on in Rolling Stone days, and always had a class straight through. And so it's been 31. This will be 32, or maybe this is 32 years. So.
Wow. And you're able to do the teaching thing and the administration thing in the way that you framed. Yeah. Being able to do the.
Well, just the one class.
Okay.
So.
What class is that?
It's a big class. I have half the sophomores one semester, and then the other half. It's called design thinking because at the end I didn't know what to call it, but it's. I bring in guests from different parts of the industries. Advertising, motion, interaction, and I try to bring in folks that the students can really relate to, particularly recent grads and their first or second jobs that they want to hear from, and to tell them what life is like, and for them to learn that they've got so many possibilities for their careers, so many more than I had in a world of print, that they can do anything. And that they know from now, when they're sophomores, that you have to learn to speak, you have to learn to present, you want to have a seat at the table, and not just be the person in the background. If you want to be the person in the background, that's absolutely fine. But if you want something else, if you want more, if you want to have the idea for what the thing is, that's absolutely possible. And you can live anywhere, especially now. And the world is your oyster. So it's to get them to start to just see what's out there besides what they see, and get them curious and help them choose a lane a little bit for junior and senior year. So that's been really fun.
The phrase you used, "the world is your oyster." Always, whenever I hear that phrase, it reminds me of a statement by Zora Neale Hurston. She said, "The world is my oyster. I'm sharpening my oyster knife." Right. So, but that's what you're talking about, is how to help students sharpen that oyster knife so they're ready to open whatever oyster appears for them.
Yeah. And now we're trying to prepare them a little bit to be collaborative. And again, you can, if you want to be there by yourself, you can, but really design is working collaboratively, and to have that experience and to enjoy it, to be able to negotiate it, and to know that sometimes you have to take the lead when somebody's slacking off on their end, or just all that stuff that they just don't want to deal with. They just want to be here in their space working. But to get them like, come on, be together. And I have a little bit of a fear because so many the goal is to work in their bedroom. And all they want is like a great chair, and they'll even have a really, like, I want to be here, like I have this amazing chair. And like, really? So I hope that they'll want to be together a little bit in person sometimes. Do you guys have that experience too? No? Yeah. Yeah. And so I want you to,
Is that harder because I could do everything on this little machine in my chair?
Yeah.
In my bedroom?
Yes. Yeah. And I know for the year and a half that we were all doing that was pretty seductive. And I was sort of curled up and happily working, and to the point where I wasn't even plugging my laptop into the bigger monitor, which I was always like, what are you guys doing working on your tiny laptops? And like, why are you just using the trackpad? Get a mouse. And I saw myself just get really small too. And it's like, well, I'm in this comfortable chair, and that's what I'm staying. So I hope that they'll be a little more expansive.
Got it. So let me shift gears a little bit, although sticking with this idea in some odd way about collaboration. What is it like to collaborate with the United States Postal Service?
How much time do you have?
Well, we got all weekend.
We're going to go visit the American Philatelic Society today. Like that's where I am now. I'm like, oh, stamps. So, something I knew nothing about, other than the few that I collected, the George Olden Emancipation stamp, but of the many things I collected when I was younger, and there are many, and I've stopped with all of it now. And now it's like trying to give it to nieces and nephews, and they're like, I don't want that. And really, which makes me sad. Antonia Alcala called from the Postal Service and asked me if I wanted to work on the Emancipation stamp. And I was like, you want me to get on the train and come down now? And I was so excited. And it was something I always thought, wouldn't it be great? Like, who does this? Just like with Spec in 16. And like, who does this? Like, how do you get a job doing this? And that would be fun. And when he called, he's like, you can't tell anybody. What?
Now tell us who he is.
He was one of the postal art directors. Postal art directors.
Okay.
And it's like it'll happen, but because you never know and all that, like you can't say anything. So it's like, really? And I worked on the ideas, and the thing that they said, don't use words. Just don't use words.
They said, don't use words.
Yeah. And
how'd that go?
Use words. But I use, there's so many problems with making mistakes and all that. But the first idea is like, well, I've got to get this out of my system. This is what you should do, is this. But then we thought, okay, let's come up with some other stuff. We thought, all right, they'll go down this lane. And Skip Gates was the proponent of the stamp. So it was like, what's Skip gonna say? And
This is Skip Gates, Henry Lewis.
Yeah.
Skip Gates, yeah.
yes, and he was on the committee on CSAC, the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee. And luckily, surprisingly, they liked the henceforward, the line from the document, like the stamp that I hope they would like. And Antonio and I went to Hat Show Print, the largest working letterpress, oldest working letterpress in the country, to print the poster that would then become the stamp. And it was another one of those like what kind of moments of that then led to my serving on the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee after that, and I think in my 10th year, and there are 2 more years to go, and then I'm done. And I from that, so that's the committee that helps to select stamps and reads public proposals and submits ideas. The first meeting, I was so nervous, and it wasn't my language, so they're talking about all this stuff and sitting and smiling, and everybody is so smart. Skip's there, and all these fancy people, and it's like, what have I gotten myself into?
Right.
And so I was on the design subcommittee, and after my second quarterly meeting, the person who was chair of the design subcommittee resigned. So he's like, now it's yours. And I was like, no. What? So, yeah, so it's been, again, trial by fire. And now 10 years in, I look forward to going there quarterly. I'll be there again in July. And I'm working on a book about stamps, which is why we're going to go to that.
Wait, let's just pause. Yeah. You say, which is why we're going to go. Where we go? We're going down to Belfont. This is where the
American Philatelic Society is. So I'm like, oh, well, while I'm here, I should go. And so again, another weird little life switch has become something that I'm comfortable doing and talking about with the group, and where I was shy at first, now I'm like able to hold my own. And so all of these have been such good learning experiences and things that have been challenging and scary, but ultimately good.
Ultimately good is good.
Yeah, really.
I have a whole list of questions, and the question I'd love to ask, I'm going to ask it now, but it feels odd to ask this question of you because of what we've already talked about, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you could have any other job than the job you have now, what would it be?
If I could, I would write full time.
Would you really?
Yeah. Yep. I like, I enjoy doing that. I wish I had time to do more. I love coming up with ideas in that lane. Less designing the book than coming up with what the book is. That's interesting now. But I've designed with my friend Joe Newton. We designed a book for Letterform Archive about Amos Kennedy, letterpress printer now in Detroit, and the experience of working with this Black printer, who's this really great, crazy man, and going to Detroit and all that. It's like I want to dig into people's stories like that more. And while I wasn't writing in that case, it was great to be so immersed in someone's life and someone's world, and someone I really like and respect and now can call a friend. And I want more of those experiences. I'd like to have them where I'm kind of steering it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that I can do that as time allows. So I can maybe have the best of both worlds.
That's great. What are you most hopeful about?
This is a rough time to ask that.
Partially why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, I think, school-wise, because that's where my head is most of the time, I'm hopeful that these coming crops of students want to make a difference. And it wasn't something on my radar at all. I just want to make cool stuff. I just want to make, more Jackson 5 stuff. So the idea of being able to make a difference or even have an opinion about stuff outside my lane never occurred to me. And for kids now, that's what they think about. And I want them to think about that more and engage more and again, not be in their little silos. So that's what I'm excited about, I guess, but terrified at the same time. And I've spent a lot of time upstate these last couple of years up in Woodstock, and I've realized that I like the country. So I'm such a city person. And then
you like the countryside, not necessarily the nation country.
Oh, no,
countryside.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, both. We'll
Okay,
say,
good.
But I'd go up there before, but I'd always sort of rush back because I've got stuff to do and I'll be bored. And now when I'm up there, I'm like, oh my God, like that's a deer. There's a bear, and a turkey crossing the road. Like life is good. And yeah. So that part for myself, I'm hopeful that I will carve out more time to enjoy that part of life and enjoy a mountain and all that I got to experience during the pandemic. Luckily, getting to be up there, that I never took time for. And I'm hopeful that I will travel more and see more of the world, because whenever I do it, I'm like, oh my God, this is life changing. And that's why people take vacations and do stuff. It's like, this is good. And it gets you all fired up again. And I've had my sort of head down for so long. I think that's why when I see the kids with their heads down, it's like, look up, like, get out there and do stuff. And in your cases now, go and make a difference. You've got the mic and you can do it so much. You can do it instantly.
Do it instantly with the range of tools that
that
we didn't have. Making
No.
scrapbooks about the Jackson.
Yeah, really. I just have my Elmer's glue, so and a flare pen. So
Not how many
Sharpie.
people are going to go out and purchase a little bottle of Elmer's glue now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I put it on my shelf in my office as a reminder of just the wisdom and just energy that you brought to this conversation. Really.
Aw.
Check my office. I'm telling you, next week I'm gonna have a bottle of Elmer's glue. Gail Anderson,
Yeah. Memorial. What?
You saw me
Point yourself.
I stopped myself. Here's the thing. I'm really, again, this pop culture piece is really foundational to the way I make sense of the world visually and other ways. And so when I have interviews like this, I always think of Inside the Actor Studio and James Lipton. I don't have my stack of blue cards, but I do want to get to a few quick questions that I didn't even share with you for some maybe quick responses, and then we'll open it up to the
I'm
rest
so
of the gang.
not quick.
Okay, well, I'll speak slowly and you can
Yeah.
respond slowly. We'll be good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound. Wow. Huh. We're on the generation of grandkids now, and there are two of the little ones, Vivi, and Levon. There's Crosby Arlo, Levon Lennon. Like these kids have
These names.
these names, the weight of the world with like, really? And Vivi. And their little voices. Like, I know that sounds so corny, but they're right at that like just a little stick of butter kind of. And so there's nothing better than that generation now voices. So yeah.
What's your favorite word?
Favorite word. It's no word these days. Yeah. Really? Seriously? That's probably sad but true.
Is that your answer?
No, I gotta do
Oh,
better than
okay.
that.
No.
I don't know. Give me a word. I can't think of a good word for it. It's like whatever. Something snarky, whatever it is. So yeah.
Where was the place that you had the best meal you've ever had in your life?
Italy.
Do you know how many times that's the answer?
Oh my God, the answer to everything is Italy. Just
Do you remember what the meal was?
pizza. I have a friend who has a house, and you want to have a friend with a house in Italy. And I've visited, and I even brought my sister and one of the kids one year. You got to come. And the first visit, I just, oh my goodness, everything about Italy, everything. And I've gone back and I'm going to go back, and wow, the light, that was the first trip. Because I've traveled a lot for work, and you tack on a day here and there, and you're like, oh, this is vacation. No, it's not. Going someplace for a couple of weeks and just really getting in there. That was Italy for me, and everything about it was perfect. And yeah. So.
Well, Gail, this has been great. May we all find our Italy meal, our Jackson
Totally.
5
Even
scrapbook.
the pizza, because and I know that you would think like that's such a
It
cliche,
wasn't just meal.
but there was
pizza.
one particular place, and it was
What part of Italy was it?
this.
Because there's
was-
different pizzas in different regions,
Yeah,
right?
this was in a little town, Colavecchio, and it was the trip that my sister and niece came, and my dear friends Len and Marty at their house, and we went to this, and we didn't even talk. We were just like, like, what is this? So yeah,
Fantastic.
and then gnocchi. So pretty much everything.
Wow.
Gnocchi, every little town we went to was like, we tried.
Seems like a nice theme to
Yeah,
organize a trip, right? A gnocchi crawl.
yeah, gnocchi crawl.
All right, listen, we're going to go to some questions from
Yeah.
online. Do we have some online questions? These are
Yes, this is from online question. During your time on the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee, what are the most controversial proposals submitted?
Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you that right now.
I'm just asking the question. And how much autonomy does the committee have to address conflict through design? Maybe you can answer that part.
Just conflict. What's not a conflict? Stamps are not about addressing conflict unless it's like the Revolutionary War or something. It's a committee with a lot of historians, and
how large is the committee?
right now I think it's 15. And yeah, stamps aren't really going to be controversial. They're celebrating the best of America and all that. There are things that we fight about, and things that we have to be really careful about. And most of the things that we can't talk about, that it just all stay in the room and like really stay in the room. And so yeah, so I don't even know how to answer that, but it's been really cool to be involved, and to sometimes be snarky and kind of roll my eyes at an idea, but then see it in the end on a subject I don't particularly care about or anything, but then be like, oh my God, this is amazing and beautiful, and I need to be less snarky. So that's been the big takeaway. The things that the American public is interested in, and it's lots of flowers and flags and puppies and kittens and that kind of stuff. But even that done right, even some of these subjects that seem so patriotic to me, I'm like, are, I tip my hat. I've learned more about the country in a bigger way than either coast and all that stuff that I can be a snob about like others. And I've learned to shut my mouth and to have an open mind and to be able to celebrate the things that I'm not interested in, and then suddenly become interested in, because the work that the public has suggested that we've then fine-tuned as ideas as the committee, and then the 4 art directors take and create the stamps. There's stuff that again you're like, oh, the Transcontinental Railroad, like whatever, and then I see it's not like the Transcontinental Railroad. So it's been such an education for me, but they'll never be like big conflicts that will people burning their envelopes and stuff. So the coolest experience ever. And I can't believe I only have 2 years left.
May they be amazing, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like. Do we have other online questions? Amy?
Yes. Favorite Rolling Stone cover or covers or, top 5?
Wow. There were some fun cover experiences and some that, you think are going to be amazing. A million years ago, there was a Janet Jackson cover, ironically, with her arms over her head, a Herbert's photo, and hands covering her breasts. And at the time, and that's so long ago, there was like, oh my God, like this was a very big deal. And I remember my mother called, and
What are you doing at work?
and Fred Woodward, my friend and the beloved and esteemed art director. She was like, "Did my Fred do that?" And so I said that to him. He was like, "Your mother said that?" And he was like, "Oh my God." But, so that was one of them. Because it was just like what? This is fun, and it might be a big deal, and then it was. And there were some really beautiful covers, and I got to work with Fred on over 300 covers in those years easily, and they were on a wall. And when I look back now, because again, you've got your head down and you're just working, and I look back and like that was like I can't believe I got to do that for 14 years. Like what? And when I look at the wall of theater posters now too that I was part of, it's like, well, I guess I got something done all these years, whether it's indirectly working with the designer or directly hands-on or that I've art directed. It's really nice to have a body of work of things you can hold in your hand, and such a different experience now. And even for me, of projects that I've worked on for Audible, that you're doing the cover of something that you only see in your car on the screen. And it's like, oh, there isn't a thing anymore. And I miss that. So at least I've got but then you end up with piles of things. And I've got, from the 14 years of Rolling Stone, I kept 3 issues of 3 copies of each issue. So multiply that over the years. And so when I left, I had boxes and boxes and boxes of magazines, and I've still got them. It's like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I got to keep it. And they're probably like yellow and brittle and like some more stuff.
Wow,
so maybe
more
it's
stuff.
a good thing that the stuff I do now lives on a screen on your car.
Digital thing rather than a thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Stacks of posters.
That's it.
And I got to keep them all. So.
Do we have any other online questions, Amy?
This is my question, but along the same
Let's
lines.
transition to the in-house ones. Go
Okay.
ahead. Amy, you have a question. Go right ahead.
Yes. Along the same lines. Favorite Broadway posters.
Wow. That goes, yeah, okay. I got to work on Avenue Q, a show that went to it off Broadway and then worked on it. That was one of the shows that, seeing it first, because if it was somewhere else first, we could see that it was so cool and so different and so unlike anything else out there. That was so exciting to get to work on. And it's not that it was the best poster or series of posters that I worked on, but it was early enough in that part of my career that I was blown away by the experience of the show, and then getting to have fun working on the poster, seeing it really blow up on Broadway. And just the whole thing lives as a great moment. And from those years of seeing shows all the time, it's like, oh, again, like that's why people do them. this, you know? That's why they get season tickets to different theaters, or that they make a point to go to Broadway shows as expensive as it is. It's like, this is another one of those like, life-changing. So that was one. And one of the first things I worked on was Man of La Mancha. And that poster, I can still look at that for the most part and say like, that was good, that was good, that was good. And that was my first opening also. And it was really bad weather, so the theater wasn't full. I was like, I'm thinking like this, opening night experience, like, it was like half empty. What? It's like, oh, it's bad weather, and we're sitting there, and it's like, wow, again, like, I can't believe I get to do this. And I get to be part of what a show looks like initially before it becomes a bunch of quote ads and all that. And now when I'm in the city, in the Broadway area, you see that the marquees have come to life. So the marquees are animated. And so even that's changed, that it's not static. I worked on a project for The Lion King a couple of years ago during the pandemic when they were getting ready to bring it back. And it was really fun to be in that world again. And then we worked on a project at school for The Lion King. And it was great to have the kids' experience going to the show. And we picked a bunch of students to participate in this special project. And the producer spoke to the students, and it was so great to introduce them to this part of my world. And I was like, well, I want to go back and do that again. The hell with this, but no.
Keep your fingers in all
Yeah.
aspects.
And it was nice in that case that someone still wanted me to be involved in something Broadway related. So it's like, yeah, sure.
Really energized by how much you appreciate what you're being immersed in it and what you're doing, right? It's not just
Not
about-
while I'm doing it though. While I'm doing it,
it's so in reflection.
It's a reflection.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not that good. Yeah, because you're just in the moment of making it. It's like, well, this is what I do. This is my job, and I really like it, and I'm happy I'm doing it. But I don't realize how cool that was until
there's some distance.
Yeah, until there's some distance. And at Rolling Stone in particular, the people I worked with, the writers and the other designers and the editors, like, these were like the smartest people and opinionated. And so great to work with people who were all really passionate about what they did and weren't just like what time can I go home? So that was amazing.
Nice. We have other questions from.
We do have another question.
Another one online. Let's go online, and then we'll do some indoors. Go ahead.
Because scrapbooking started you on your journey, do you feel anything is lost in our increasingly digital world?
Yes.
You didn't even let her finish
Where
the
am I
question.
But then that's another moment where I'm like, I'm old, so I've got to be careful because it also opens doors. But we just opened a fabrication lab at school, and I've been thrilled to see how much the kids want to make stuff. I was worried that they wouldn't want to, the time that's invested in doing that, and to have something from the 3D printer or the laser cutter or whatever, that they wouldn't get it. But they have stuff in their hands and they're excited. And for me, I go off in one direction and I'm falling behind in the creative suite, or I haven't used After Effects in so long that I've forgotten what I'm doing. And that's always scary for me, especially as I'm older and can't retain any of this anymore. So I miss having the object. And even the portfolios that they submit, sophomores and juniors, are digital. And I like print it out when they're working in class. And I want to walk by the rooms and see stuff on the walls once in a while.
So it's the process that's missing. Is that it?
Well, no,
Or evidence of the process? No.
Things that live in a print world, as you're doing it, as you're making it, you should be printing. And it happens with the stamps, that when the art directors are working with the artists, they're like, print it out at an inch. And they're like, I got this. And we even use, reducing glass instead of enlarging to look at things really small. And yeah, so and I remember Antonio saying that to me when I was working on the stamp, and I had a little black and white printer at home, and he was right. And now you're saying, look at it on your phone to see if it's still printed out small. And I just as I got lazy at home and just curled up on my chair with my laptop and didn't bother with the big screen, it's
Print it out.
print it out. Yeah.
All right. Hashtag print it out.
Yeah.
All right, questions from inside the jury space. Yep. Go ahead.
I think there was one over there, but it was the same. Maybe it's a little early in the day for this, but some of us in the room are from architecture. And there's been talk from time to time about trying to link architecture and graphic design closer together.
I love that. I have a friend who works with Cambridge 7, and she's a designer, and I see the project that she does with them in Boston, and the collaboration, her giant type and their cool spaces, and it's like, yes, please. You got something? Because I'll do it.
Well, okay, so here's a wedge into something. If we grant for the purposes of discussion that graphic design is mostly about 2D and architecture is more about 3D stuff, although it's not really that clearly defined, what would you think would be the graphic designers or the graphic design mentalities or perspectives most important contribution to an architectural process? Would it be about, say, creating iconic moments? Or could it be about creating sort of rich backgrounds that are only subliminally effective?
Who are you?
I teach architecture to engineers. I have to do things like this to keep my brain cells.
I love the idea of creating these backdrops and these backgrounds. That's, where our students are starting to get into exhibition design and experiential stuff. And I've done very little of that myself, but yeah, collaborating and creating spaces. The easiest way for me is branding a space or doing, timelines, and big giant type and all that I love. And the stuff that I've seen Paula Scher do that she's taking over a space, those kind of collaborations, yes, please. I'm intimidated by you because I'm like, oh, he's an architect, like, oh, and you're bringing something, you're making the space. I'm like making the space pretty. And, like, wow, to that. And yeah, to be a partner in that would be any designer's dream, to really think about how spaces are used, wayfinding and all that, and beyond that of how you live in a space. That would be the coolest collaboration.
The challenge is to keep it from just being a battle of egos.
And but in that I would have to cede to you because you're making the space, but yeah, I guess I can see how that would be about those to an extent. But again, for my friend Rena in Boston, when I see the cool stuff that she's done with this firm, like, oh, I want to do that too. Just with anything, I'm like, I want to do that now. But that in particular, it's like, what's this exhibition that you? There are great projects, and again, to look at Paula Scher, my hero, and how she's invaded and had that seat at the table that we all want, and would be a little intimidated by with an architect. Yeah, I don't even know. I probably didn't answer your question back because I'm like, wow, yes, please.
Okay, that's the wedge to involvement.
Yeah.
Your endorsement helps. Thank you.
And enthusiasm, yeah.
That's great. The question here.
I'm Jin Wan-Chen, I'm the director of Stuckeman School. So firstly, welcome you to our building and welcome to Penn State. And thanks for sharing your experience. Kind of extending from that a little bit, Andrew's question. I actually would want to ask you, I am a landscape architect, and oftentimes the people will, if I introduce myself, say, hey, I'm a landscape architect, people will say, oh, can you design my backyard? What plans to do, right? And I'm thinking, I'm not that kind of landscape architect, right? So I believe probably people have stereotype of what graphic designers doing. But with all the technology or the trend and things we can contribute to, I'm curious what you think. What would you define as the next generation of graphic design or design as a whole? What's the role we can do, or what do you think is the contribution to the work?
I mean, again, I think that we, and not me because I'm old, but the coming generations in generations now are get to be engaged in a way that we certainly weren't. And I would want to believe that their parents know what they do for a living, where for me, I had a whole career of like, did you draw the cover? Like, no, what? You took a picture. No. Or that what you do sounds like fun. Okay. And just like I'm sure with the like, oh, you can do my garden. I'm like, thanks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like really, as much as I've explained this, you still don't understand. I hope that for these guys now, that people do understand that, and that your opinions are valued, that your voice is amplified, that we are capable of making cool things, and in the end, we want to make cool things, but we want to make things that matter, and that everyone, as part of their practice, should be in give back mode in some way. And I say this all the time, whether later on it's teaching, which is what it was for me, of feeling like there's something else I need to be doing besides this magazine, and that I want to make a difference in some way, that there are so many more ways for young people to make that difference. And again, with their phones, instantly have a voice that is heard. And I don't know I don't know who I would have been if my world had a phone and all those bits and pieces. If I would have been quiet and in the background, or if I would have probably quiet in the background. But yeah, it's like, you've got so many opportunities, my young friends. Please take advantage of them. And it's hoping to light a fire still that sometimes feels like it's not there, that it's getting there. I don't know. So I'm not answering your question either, probably.
But maybe I think about this off and on, the role of the arts at a large research institution, and when you said something like, "What? That's what you think I do?" After as many times as I've explained it, that's what you think I do. Maybe it's our fault. Maybe we're not explaining it well. Could that be? Could that be?
I blame myself for everything in general. It's like, that was me. I'm sorry, that was my fault. But that one, no.
Okay. Just do a reality check. So we're explaining well.
No, I had printed evidence of what I did. You haven't seen covers and still, did you draw that? Did you see an illustration on any of these?
You see where it says what I do. You see where it says what somebody else did. That's the somebody else.
Yeah. And then I said, well, looked at typography. Oh, so is there a book with all of that type and you just choose that? And yes, there's one book, all the type in the world. That sounds like fun.
That's the best way to answer.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? Yes, please.
At least if he made a building, then it's like, oh, well, that's a building.
Right. No, you didn't.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So Gail, thank you for coming. And I guess I want to kind of go back to Mike's question, but ask it in a different way. So.
To get me to answer?
So if you were to define what you do as a graphic designer and art director, but out of the context of the industry, more in a universal way, can you describe what you do that could be applicable to many things? You know, I think, you know, with Dean Carpenter's question about maybe it's us in terms of not describing, but I think of what I learned from design in the process. I feel like I could apply it to just about anything I do.
Because it's
But
problem solving.
to define it, yes, we could say problem solving, but can you elaborate on that a little bit of what is problem solving?
Yeah,
Like, what does that offer us in terms of trying to find solutions to the world's problems? You're talking about students, they have a lot to do. And, you know, design can be, like you were saying, very insular.
Mhm.
But when you turn it out, can it be something different if you were to apply it to the world, perhaps in a less insular way? I'm
Like
not sure what I'm
Milton's
asking.
line is,
But I think
design
so.
is going from an existing state to a preferred state. It's like, that's all, that's what it is, you know? And, yep, that sums it up. And we're facilitating, we're making things easier to navigate, easier to take in. And I think what I've learned in the years, especially again as I get older, is that it's not just facilitating, you can actually kind of set people in a direction a bit. You can help them form an opinion. You can help them figure things out. There's that interesting part of this visual problem solving that we do is like, I can actually help change the way you think. And that's mind blowing. And if you try to explain that to someone, they're like, oh, but you make it look pretty. It's like, yeah, but that, yes, sure. But, and those are the people that I'm attracted to, are the ones who can really kind of shift thinking. And not through making a big statement, but just these little subtle ways to help you shift your thinking or change direction. And the fun thing with the theater stuff for me was that you were getting people excited about this experience. And sometimes I knew up front the experience wasn't going to be very good. I saw it, but you're like, okay, I'm gonna, for better or worse, put butts in seats. And that this thing that I'm making doesn't tell the literal story. You know, we're not storytellers in that way, but it elicits a feeling. And that's best of what we do, gets you excited or makes you sentimental or whatever. But that part of design is really exciting. And it's like our little secret that we can't tell anybody that's what we're doing. But it is what we're doing.
Other questions?
And when I get to do stuff like this, then I'm energized and I go back and I'm like, I love this, you know, and I'm not bitter and broken anymore. Then I'm plugged back into the big screen. So
Do we have
Yes,
time for more
absolutely,
questions?
absolutely. Go
Okay,
for it.
wonderful. So I have a hard question and an easy question, and you can choose.
I can only remember one question at a
Good,
time.
right, because you will only hear one.
I
Yeah,
get
so
to
you get to pick the easy or the hard one.
go for the hard one. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I've been very inspired and moved by your comments about, you know, what, as also a teacher and sort of former low-level administrator, you know, the next generation of students and what we can do to support them and, you know, empower them and looking to the future. So I find what you've said about that very inspiring. And I also, earlier we were talking, or there was a reference to your context there in New York. And, we were talking about hope, and these are difficult times. And your kind of wealth of experience and variety of perspectives, if you could offer a bit of advice to, say, university or college presidents today, what might that be? I didn't say it was hard.
Yeah, really.
We could switch to the easy one.
Oh, man. Wow.
And I should say this is a genuine, I really would love,
We're seeing this nationally, right?
Oh my
that
God, yeah.
University presidents, not just the past couple of weeks, but in the past couple of years, have really been under a
Yeah.
different kind of microscope and a different set of challenges and expectations.
Yeah. I mean, I see it even where I am, Mobility School. It's, I guess, for people high up in administration and obviously president, to, and it sounds so corny, to be in there listening and to be a presence in a day-to-day public way, to be accessible, and the times that I've seen in my experience at SVA, our president, David Rhodes, meeting with student government, meeting with groups who had concerns, kids with problems. You think, how does a president, how does a vice president, how do they find the time to meet? It's making the time for that. It's not being separate and disengaged. And I don't know how you navigate right now, in particular when everything is scary and prickly and all of that, and we're all so afraid to say the wrong thing. I am, and I say the wrong thing all the time. And said something stupid when I was leaving, and I was in the car like, oh God, what did I say? We're second guessing ourselves left and right. But yeah, I guess the advice is to be in there, so that people aren't afraid to ask and to talk to you, and they're not feeling like you are so separate and you're up there in your ivory tower. Yeah, this is such a weird time on so many levels. Yeah, and as someone who's prone to say stupid things, or write stupid things and hit send, like I'm just trying to contain my degree of stupid myself, and jokiness. I'm bringing us down now.
No, I'm so sorry. And I probably should have said it was a really hard question.
Yeah, really hard
There was
question.
an easy and a hard.
No, I'm glad you didn't break Gail Anderson.
Sorry.
No, but the point is, we're living in really challenging times.
Yeah.
And it's a question that's on all of our minds, right? How much do we say? What do we speak up and address? What do we let move in its own way? How do we respond? How do you encompass the breadth of who is listening in your statement and not? It's all so complicated. It's all so challenging, and just the fact that we're thinking about it being a difficult, we're living in challenging times, and leaders being in positions of feeling responsible for saying things. The part that resonates with me is just be available and listen.
Yeah.
Make time to listen, and try not to say stupid stuff.
Yeah. Yes, that's. Yeah.
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 So on that note,
Yeah, see ya.
Make time to listen and try not to say stupid stuff.
Yeah, that's what you've learned from me today.
Gail Anderson, everyone. All right, Gail will be our commencement speaker tomorrow.
We'll all get up and say something stupid.
The reception is tomorrow morning, starts at 10:30? 10:30 out here at the Corner Tower Terrace, weather permitting, inside here if it's a little more humid than we'd like. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.